Barish Gultakin, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Barish is also in the Bay Area, down in Palo Alto, here in Northern California, where yet again, Silicon Valley, Barish, has invented the next big thing. I don't know if it's surprising, but it is amazing in some ways that Silicon Valley just keeps producing, these huge sort of ways of disruption or innovation. So, and you were here on this wave early. I'm one of these jumping on the bandwagon guys. I got into AI February the 1st, 2023, when I first played for an extended period of time with ChatGPT Plus. And that's when it was released. You've been working really in this arena for, I think, close to a decade, if not longer. And you were at Google, creating Google Now and other products, Google Assistant. So really early AI, right? Early AI ML in terms of consumer services. So I'd like to start there. Let's sort of put this moment in context and talk about not how do we get here, but sort of what are your observations about this moment? And how much of it is hype and how much of it is real? And then I want to talk about, the next couple of years in terms of what's coming. And don't worry, for the audience, we will talk about data as well. Barish is head of AI at Snowflake. I talk about Snowflake a lot because of the way you've disrupted the SaaS business model with a consumption model. And I think that's for another conversation. But I think we'll see new business models like Snowflake's as we think about AI in the enterprise. But let's talk about this moment, Barish, and how much is hype and how much is real?
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Greg. Great to be here. So as you said, I've been in the kind of AI space for over a decade. Started with the earlier versions of Google Assistant, which was called Google Now. It was a consumer product that was meant to kind of tell you the information you need proactively when you need it. And then worked on the Google Assistant afterwards, building assistants on mobile devices. In both of those areas, it was very, I'll say, so it was incredibly exciting. It's an incredibly exciting journey to see how technology has been evolving over the past years and how fast it's been evolving in the last couple of years. But when we were doing Google Now, it felt like magic, but it was a lot of kind of heuristics and machine learning based. Even with Google Assistant, there was a lot of kind of creating, intent by intent, the whole experience from kind of setting alarms, setting timers, listening to music, and so forth. And I jokingly say we're now transitioning from a time when we did not want to call it AI because it was all kind of heuristics and machine learning, and it didn't quite work. So we were basically stitching lots of different pieces of technology together to a time when it feels like magic. It is starting to work in ways that we did not even anticipate. So I'm incredibly excited about the journey, especially over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years. Even when I look at the products that we've been building, we started building some of the products, and we're in a space where being able to talk to your data is one of the most important things we'd like to offer. And turns out, especially talking to structured data is really difficult. Being able to use natural language to then translate it into text to SQL, generating an answer is really difficult. So during that journey, we've seen tremendous improvements over just the last year, how much the technology wasn't quite there, and now it is there at a point where it's quite useful.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because this reminds me of this research that I look at every year. He was actually one of our guests last year. This guy looks at Reddit and he mines Reddit for all the signals around what are the top use cases for AI. And there was a pretty significant change this year. He just published the data. They published it in the Harvard Business Review. The top 3 use cases are all essentially conversations with AI, right? With companionship, therapy, and I think sort of advice or something like that were the top three. Creativity, creative brainstorming is also in the top five. And so it's obviously good at, like, we know it's really good at that, right? It's really good to have sort of an unstructured sort of conversation where the hallucinations aren't as much of a drawback. Maybe they're a feature, not a bug, so to speak. And we know, because if you work with AI, that with structured data, it can be more challenging, and the hallucinations or mistakes are more risky. Obviously, if you're working with data and need to move that data on or publish it or use it in the forecast, whatever. But you're saying you're seeing significant improvements in the last 12 months in terms of the AI's ability and your ability to work with structured data and get reliable output. So just say a little bit more about that. Or
Sure.
what's
Yes.
happened, or does it matter? Do we care what's happened? It's just, or we care that it's getting better?
I mean, it is getting significantly better at a rate that that I wasn't anticipating. We like saying there is no AI strategy without a data strategy. And ultimately, AI is as good as the data that you provide, as good as the context that you provide to it, because otherwise it's pulling from all sorts of different contexts, and it doesn't know when it doesn't have the right information. So there are chances of hallucination. In a business context, especially when you're working with kind of structured data, when you ask the question, what was my revenue in this country last year, like, there is a correct answer. It's not a close enough. Like, it's either right or wrong. So the stakes are incredibly high, and that's exactly what has been challenging, and that's exactly what we set out to solve in the AI team at Snowflake, both from a structured data perspective, which is a much harder challenge, as well as even unstructured data, working with documents. When you ask a question, you absolutely do not want hallucinations as well. You want truthful answers, citations, sources, and so forth. So what has changed is a couple of things. One is the models are getting better by the day. Like, there's a new model that seems to come out that blows everything else out of the water every week now. So it's quite exciting to see. And I'd say the thing that made a huge difference is the agentic solutions that are coming out in the market. So it is not just the model itself, but the ability to be able to kind of do reasoning, planning, figure out, oh, how do I answer this question? Let me think first. Here are the steps I'm going to go through. Start taking the steps, reflect on the answers, correct itself. Those are the important features of an agentic solution that is making a significant improvement in the quality.
Okay, we're 10 minutes in. We're already hyping agents. So I'll go back to that. Let's hold a little bit longer on. I'm a typical team leader, a marketing team, a finance team. And I want the output to be consistently reliable. And again, with not these casual conversations, but this more like hey, help me with this competitive analysis or forecast or whatever it might be. So, are we a year or two away from feeling like there's a very high degree of confidence in these answers we're getting, or is there always going to be this risk? What I'm hearing now is, well, humans make mistakes, so why are you so upset that AI makes a mistake? Well, software doesn't typically make mistakes, right? Snowflake doesn't get numbers wrong, right? So, like, how do you think we should think about it, and how long or how soon till we're getting just a higher degree of confidence about the output I'm getting?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question, and it's one that we hear from kind of AI leaders all the time, right? How can I trust this data? When can I trust this data? I would say, clearly AI can make mistakes, and everything we do today needs to be done in a setup, in a mindset that expects and assumes that mistakes are possible. And even with that, we're seeing significant kind of productivity gains, for instance. Like, there are a lot of use cases that are unlocked. And when you assume that there's a chance for making mistakes, we design products, and I suggest our customers as well to design products in a way that kind of takes that as given, and then works with it, works around it. So, for instance,
Hold on a sec. I want to stop you right there. This is an important hot take. I haven't heard someone say this as sort of honestly and directly as before. So I'd like to make sure the audience hears it, and that we sort of reflect this back in our meeting and webinar notes, which is you need to design your application system process with the assumption that AI can make mistakes. And that's sort of a design principle, basically, is what you're saying. At this moment, right, these technologies need to have that as a design principle. And therefore, there needs to be some way to mitigate that, right? And, or, solve for that, if you will. Again, I just haven't heard it said so clearly. And I'm not even sure we do that at section as well as we could amplify that. I think it's that's sort of that's the moment we're in right now, right, Varish? That's what you're saying.
That's exactly.
That's not going to change anytime soon, meaning not in the next few weeks or months.
It is getting incredibly better incredibly fast.
Yeah.
But I'll give you examples of what we're doing, for instance, in our products. Like first of all, whenever we give you an answer, we provide citations and the sources that go along with it. For structured data, we have this notion of a verified query, meaning when when a customer sets up a structured data agent, they provide, hey, for this question, here are some here's a query. So we offer, when a question comes in, this is exactly verified by an expert, or this is very close to what was verified by an expert. So providing those hints to the user who knows that now this is safe. I know I can trust this. Already gets a lot of productivity gains and trust in the system. And then everything else, for you can always provide verifications, human in the loop verifications where you can ask questions and build a system.
At some point, but you already kind of preempted my question. At some point, though, Barish, isn't the kind of the checking of the work, doesn't that diminish and/or kind of reduce the ROI? Or what you said earlier was no, you're still seeing, even with that layer of sort of verification or checking, whatever you want to call it, that we're still going to get these productivity gains. I'm not sure our audience is buying it. I'm just looking at chat. Or is that just sort of analysis you have to make? How much productivity gain can you get, even if you have to layer in some human verification? Is that how to think about it? It's use case dependent?
So first of all, observability becomes incredibly important in the design of these products. So when you design a product and we offer these ability to monitor what the agent is doing, ability to intervene, get user input, that becomes really, really important and a core part of the product offering. And in terms of the progression of AI, I would say it goes from a human using AI to simplify the task to AI bringing a mostly completed task to a human, to AI more or less automating with spot checks to fully automation. So there is always that progression that is happening, and it is going much faster, much faster
than you thought it would.
Than I thought it would.
Yeah. Along that continuum. So human using AI bringing us nearly completed work, human checking, and then an AI doing it. You're saying we're moving along that rapidly now, that continuum.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to talk about agents yet. Okay, so let's switch to data. I want to start first with personal data, and then we'll talk about sort of, a company and enterprise. I'm promiscuous with my data with AI. I am personally. I share a lot with AI. I use GPT, Claude, and Perplexity mostly, particularly around health and personal stuff. Am I being naive? I do that because I believe I get more value than risk in terms of my data, right? I don't what I've shared with AI, I've never shared with Google because I'm getting to a level I'm sharing, blood work and tumor reports or whatever it might be, just really full up, all my medical file basically, right? I'm willing to share with GPT, and I've never done that with Google. Obviously, I've done a bunch of searches. So, just what's your advice to me? Should I be doing that? But should I be concerned? How do you feel about that?
I'll answer it in two ways. Like one is for Snowflake, data is at the core of what we do, and that protection of data, that security and the governance of data is incredibly core to the business. Mm-hmm. So for anyone using Snowflake, we have very strict guarantees that your data is yours. It is not used used to train any AI models. It does not even, when you're using AI, it does not even leave the security boundary of Snowflake. So when you're using OpenAI's or Anthropic's models, all of those models are running right next to the data without that data leaving that secure perimeter. So we take security and governance incredibly seriously.
But
Uh,
I don't use Snowflake. I'm,
your
this is
question was more, as
just
a
like, do you think I'm being naive? Or do you think, I mean, you're a data guy, you're an AI guy, you've been in this game for 25 years. Like, do you feel the payoff is worth it? We get more value from AI maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but sorry.
This is first of all, I would encourage you to kind of check the terms of the service that you're using, right? So for
Sure.
instance, you're using ChatGPT. ChatGPT has different offerings. In some of those
Yeah.
offerings, you have some control of how much data can be used to train the model, how much data is accessible to ChatGPT for anyone but you. So just
Yeah.
make sure that you understand the terms.
Yeah.
But more broadly, of course, like the more context there is for an assistant about you, the more helpful the assistant can be. So there, it's all about. I do believe having providing that data to the assistant, ChatGPT or what have you, is helpful for so that it can provide you with more with more help. But of course, make sure that you understand how your data can be used afterwards.
Yeah. So let's now sort of migrate from consumer, prosumer, maybe into small teams, and then we'll get to enterprise. Obviously, the AI companies, the AI apps like GPT are making it easy to kind of connect, right? Connect to Google Docs or your Drive or any other sources of truth or data. That to me makes total sense, meaning AI is so much more useful when it has context, when it's working with my data. So, in those to me, it just seemed like the cheap way to get access to your data with your AI. Is that how you would think about it? Like it's the low friction way for small teams or individuals maybe to begin to work with their data, like connect it to the chat bot.
That's certainly right. So, being able to just, pull in a PDF, upload it, ask questions about it, being able to connect your, Google Drive and then pick documents from it and ask questions about it. Those are all great ways to get started.
So let's get specific now around data governance again, and in this more kind of localized way, right? Again, not the full enterprise, but more. What's your advice as a leader to say what is sort of red, green, yellow around what data can or can't be shared? If you are running a small company or a team inside of a bigger company, do you have, let's talk about data governance for a bit in very practical terms. Let's say the corporate data policy, it makes no sense or because it was written by a bunch of lawyers a year ago. What would you be telling a team leader around what's appropriate level of caution, but also to get the productivity gain you want from AI? Just how would you talk a leader through that to think about data governance or data company data privacy?
Yeah, let's all talk about it in three different buckets. One is like the example that you gave is, I have a set of documents that are accessible to me as a user, and I'm using those documents and asking questions about it. Like there, the governance risks are low. You already have access to the data, and then you're asking questions. As long as you're again, going back to the terms of service part, as long as you're comfortable
Yeah.
with that, it's all good. Then there is the kind of shared data across the company, which can be quite helpful. Like for instance, you have uh, uh, your company's
Well,
policies.
yeah,
Let's say
a business plan, right? Let's say you're in marketing and you don't have in marketing, you may not have the full business plan necessarily, right? But you might have access to it, right? And you might want access to it, right?
so there, what happens is again, if a certain set of documents are accessible to a group, creating a scoped version of, I'll use the word agent again, a scoped version of that agent that is governed for that group, who already has access to those documents, is again a kind of a clear, very, very helpful, very short term, high impact thing that I see businesses doing. The complexity comes in the last bucket. which is you have a vast amount of documents across the organization with very granular access controls on these documents. You have vast numbers of kind of structured data with very granular access controls on that data. Like there, of course, you need a solid data foundation so that the governance is in place, so that when somebody asks a question, they only have access to the set of information that should be given to them. To me, that bucket is the bucket where there's a lot of value because you're unlocking large amounts of data as context for the for AI. But of course, that's where governance becomes really important.
That just sounds like a nightmare to me. Managing all those, knowing what all those permissions currently are, and then managing or bringing them into some sort of, operational, AI system, whatever you want to call it. I get that's how Snowflake probably helps, but it just strikes me as I can see why at that level, a lot of this enterprise AI is slowing down and or stalling out, because I think making that happen does not seem, just seems like a nightmare to me.
I mean, that's exactly where kind of a data platform comes into
Sure.
play. That's
Yeah.
that that's the purpose of kind of bringing those data silos, creating governed access for the right people is at that data layer.
Yeah. Barish, I interviewed a head of AI or talked to a head of AI recently who said that he was, and they use AI a lot. So, high levels of adoption and usage of a chatbot, kind of an everyday employee kind of use cases. And they were really talking about sort of migrating this idea of sort of creating hundreds of data analysts inside the company because they could, they could train people, and of course with AI, give them that ability to kind of query data and get good answers, and that it was running into, as you might expect, a fair amount of resistance around, well, the governance and the risk of that. So it's kind of a little bit like everybody's going to be a coder at some point. We're all going to be vibe coding, and yet it seems more scary to say everyone's going to be a data analyst. But isn't that what we should be thinking? Like we want to get the data in people's hands and their ability to query it and use it. I guess that's kind of what your business is. But like, what's in the way of that? Is it just this risk sort of orientation, too much of a risk orientation that's getting in the way of it?
I mean, it is important to set things up correctly. And we've seen examples where if they're not set up correctly, wrong things happen. Just a simple example is, you build an HR bot and somebody asks, who was promoted last week? Based on who
Right.
you are, based on what data you have access to, you should get different answers. So
Right.
that's a simple example. What gets in the way is, a solid, not having a solid data foundation means you first need to go through that journey of setting things up properly, governing it properly, establishing those policies. That's the first step. Then the part that people get kind of concerned about is quality. I'll call it retrieval quality. Given a question, am I able to get the right answer from the right set of kind of the documents or tables and whatnot, and then provide that as context for for the agent. So quality becomes incredibly important. And the third bucket is there is overall kind of like once you've said yes, we're going to do this, we've set up the policies, we have a data governance solution so that makes us comfortable, and we've gone through the building process of building high quality agents. I also see kind of some hurdles around getting people to change habits. And then that tends to be another hurdle. Like you'll see a difference between an intern that comes in and then uses AI versus somebody who's been doing the same thing for a while.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
And the difference is quite stark.
So let's take a typical 30, 40, 50 person company or organization. And I'm getting started here. Maybe I bought the chat bot and a few people, the interns and the, and the young kids are using it and no one else is. But here's my question. Do I hire, based on what you're saying, now I'm questioning, do I hire a head of AI or do I hire a head of data? Or if I can only afford one head count, do I need to make sure I get both inside of one body or inside of one brain? Meaning, like it feels like to me a head of AI is going to go headlong into training everybody to use chatbot and all that stuff. But wait a minute, and do all the change management and that cultural and behavior change, right? New habits. But then if the data is not in, if they don't even, if they haven't set that up, yeah. So how would you answer that question? Again, I'm the president of a small company, maybe a consulting firm, someone like a services business. Should I hire a head of data or a head of AI?
So what I'm seeing right now is it's a bit of a wild west. Somebody goes and builds, a POC here, another POC there. They're all using more or less the same types of data, but they're recreating it, making copies of it. So, for instance, you have your documents, and then somebody creates a vector database, and then there are multiple versions of the vector database, in multiple places. What I'm seeing is those people who've been, data platform owners are now being tasked to also work with AI. So the role of a chief data officer or a kind of data platform owner is expanding to provide the data platform for AI. Ultimately, data plus AI go hand in hand together, right? So that to me is a kind of, if you're going to hire a single person, hire that person who has the data background, but also is very well versed in AI, so that they know exactly kind of how to set things up and then go forward.
Well, let's spend a couple more minutes here. I know we're getting tactical, but I think it's going to be really useful to the audience. I hope so anyway. Otherwise, I'm off base. But let's describe this person in a little more detail. I want to go hire this person, Barish, right? And again, think small company. Don't think Snowflake. You guys got way too much money and resources. But think small company, or again, a team inside of an org. Uh, just again, let's describe this person's LinkedIn profile. Is this 5 or 10 years experience? Does it say data in their resume or LinkedIn profile? Like, are they an engineer? Again, I'm talking about this one person who's going to come in and really get this transformation to accelerate, right, inside my team. And you're saying it's kind of this, it's the same person. We have to have someone who can kind of wrap their head around data and not just be in love with chatbots. So describe this person to me so I can go write the JD or go look on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I'll first say, AI is very recent, right? So, all of the developments, are happening incredibly rapidly. So you want someone who's well versed in the last 2 years in AI, has experienced with AI, and has a lot of excitement to keep up with this rapid change that's happening. And at the same time, you want someone who has data experience, from before, who's built data, worked with data, built data platforms from before, so that you can address that. How do I scale this? How do I feel comfortable about how everything is set up? So that's to say, say 5 to 10 years of experience with data, and then the last few years working with AI and yeah.
And are they coming from a technical background then primarily? If they've been like, are they product managers? Do you think, let's say, or are they more like engineers or data
They're
engineers?
more data engineers, I'd say.
Okay, all right,
And
and yeah, that makes sense. Again, I think that's a really valuable insight. At least for me, in terms when I think about building out our team. We have a data guy at section, and then we have our sort of AI team, and they're frankly a little more siloed. I mean, they're not that siloed because we're a small organization. But I wonder if we could do an even better job, right, of kind of connecting those two.
yeah, what's interesting is what I'm seeing is, like these data platforms tend to be platform for the whole organization. And now that these are data plus AI platforms. And then each business unit has their own use cases. And the platform needs to make it super easy for these, business units to go in and with relatively low effort, build really compelling use cases for their needs.
Arish, I want to switch from data now and come back to sort of adoption, deployment, and general acceptance of these technologies inside our organizations. My sense is a lot of organizations are struggling. They're buying the LLM, let's say, and other AI tools. Frankly, probably we're increasingly seeing companies buying too many tools and not getting much adoption. So I think we're in a bit of a stall moment, certainly in larger organizations, in more traditional legacy firms. What do you think? what's going on there? And again, what would your advice be to a leader that's running a 100-person team who's frustrated? We see what some CEOs are doing, right? They're doing the AI memo and they're, making a big deal about, if you don't use AI, your performance review, you're going to get dinged in your performance review kind of thing. That's obviously Shopify. But what's your advice? You've been leading, you're obviously leading a team now. No, it's an AI team, so may not be typical, but what's your advice to leaders around not stalling out here?
Um, I mean, I will say the productivity gains are incredibly real. So embracing AI, it feels in a bit of inevitable to me. So I'd say, you know, do that sooner rather than later. And I see a lot of companies, start with POCs. It's relatively easy to build kind of the 80% solution super fast and
Mhm.
understand what works, what doesn't work, where to put a lot of resources. Um, an important question comes up, should I build or buy? And this is kind of what maybe you're alluding to as well. You try to figure out, hey, what is going to differentiate me? I should build this. What should I accelerate? Then I should buy. That's kind of how I would think about build versus buy. I'm seeing a lot of companies out there that have really good solutions, point solutions, where there's a single package solution out there for that specific need. What AI has done is it's made building really custom solutions for your specific business needs much, much easier. So there's a lot of appeal in kind of building that platform, learning how to go build something custom for your need and quickly go start executing.
But you're also saying there's a lot of great point solutions off the shelf as well. So you're just
Okay.
right. So
You think about that build versus buy
right,
decision
right.
very clearly.
That build is seductive to your point because it can feel like it's really customized and dialed in, but now you got to maintain it and fix it and so on. I was actually referring, Barish, to uh, lack of employee adoption of AI tools. I'm specifically referring to enterprise LLMs like GPT Enterprise, Microsoft Copilot Pro, Gemini. And I was just curious if you had advice for a leader who's not seeing that level of adoption, because they might be buying into what you just said, the leader, which is the productivity gains are clearly there. I want to talk about CFOs in a moment, but the gains are there, but the employees are dragging their feet. What's your advice? One
I've
piece of
seen
advice.
be effective is and we do this here at Snowflake as well. Like these lunch and learns where folks come in and say, "Here is how I'm using it. These are the use cases," and then that alone is kind of broadening the perspective of a broader audience. We're also seeing more push from the leadership in the organization. Like here's a tool. We highly recommend you use this tool because we believe it's going to be effective. So both bottoms up and tops down. Like I think both of these are happening and both of those are effective.
I love it. I love the fact that one of the most successful software companies in Silicon Valley the last decade, in the age of AI, still do lunch and learns, because so do we. And that, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of this is change. It is change management, right? And that's what works. Change, lunch and learns, hackathons, right? Prompt contests, use case libraries, whatever it might be. It's what I tell clients is that it's not rocket science. It's hard, meaning hard. You got to do it every day, every week, every year. Like this it's not going to slow down, right? I tend to get frustrated with clients and prospects that sort of want to do it for 1 month and like consider the AI launched. A bunch of workshops, a bunch of lunch and learns, a couple all hands meetings, and that's just not going to work, right? This change is dramatic and will take a while. I want to get to the CFO question though, because you opened the door. So okay, you just said the productivity gains are great, and how do we see them? And therefore, how do we build a business case? Because I'm getting a lot of pushback from CFOs at our prospects because they're seeing the price tag of all this, including the change management and it's not just the software, right? You gotta get people using it and so on. So yeah, what's your point of view there? Again, what's your advice to leaders who need to go deal with a CFO?
Yeah, so I would say it is important to define success, to have these KPIs that you're tracking. And then that's where I would start. We're seeing both the price tag of LLMs come down over the years and the capabilities go up. So it's all trending in the right direction. Then the question becomes, are you able to measure, define what success looks like and measure it, and then go prove it out, and then deploy it widely once you've proven it out. Sometimes it's hard to do. Sometimes it's a little more vague. But many companies that I'm working with, it tends to be obvious. There are certain use cases where clearly there is big opportunity to provide productivity gains. At Snowflake, we've done some surveys, for instance, to measure, to see how companies are measuring ROI and what that ROI looks like. Ultimately, the CFO's job is to make sure that the ROI is there, and it's great to have that discipline to go set it up so that you're measuring it.
So you have no doubt, again, you're an insider here, right? Inside at Snowflake and working with a lot of enterprise. You have no doubt that these business cases are already or are going to be very robust in terms of 3, 5, 10x type ROIs for these types of investments.
I'm certainly seeing the ROI, yes.
Yeah. If you were running a 100-person company, would you give everyone access to a paid LLM, like a premium LLM? Would you, if you had no AI in the company today, and let's say your data was in decent shape, whatever that means, would you give everybody, would you pay the $25 a month, let's say 30 list price, 25 after discounts maybe? Would you, if you were president of that company, and it was your company, would you spend the money on an LLM for everybody?
I absolutely would. Yes. Yes, it makes a difference. Absolutely.
I love your excitement about it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me.